Gang's all here. Stay away, sir. Space, we need space. I'll bring you all up on charges under the Me Too movement. I'm very excited. It's exciting to start a new legislative session. For me, this is exciting to have a Democratic Senate and a Democratic Assembly. The agenda that the Democratic Senate and the Assembly are talking about are everything we've been talking about for years. It's the agenda that I went through just a few weeks ago. We have the same priorities. We want to get the same things done, same pieces of legislation, new gun laws, Child Victims Act, et cetera. You go right down the list. They're virtually identical. Now all we have to do is get it done.
So, you don't agree on those making the tax cap permanent? The Assembly's doesn't seem to be going that way. And have you talked to them about that? And if you don't get that, how big a blow is that to your agenda?
Some things don't change year to year. If you have a 45-item agenda, and one of them is property tax cap, continued or permanent, what percentage blow would you say that is?
No, my question was, if you don't get the permanent tax cap, which you want, the Assembly doesn't seem to be going for that, how big a blow is that?
Well, you don't know where they're going, right? You're just guessing.
No,
the Senate.
They don't seem to be going for it.
Oh, well, that's what they say to you is one thing, what they vote for is something else. I understood that the Senate supported the permanent tax cap. I proposed the permanent tax cap. So I believe in it. The Senate believes in it. That's not a bad start.
Do you worry about the Democrats going too far on some issues that you might not totally favor, like single-payer health care, more taxes on millionaires, billionaires, a lot of education spending?
You know, I don't think well, look, on a budget, the numbers have to add up, right? So that's the discipline on the budget. 1 and 1 is still 2, right? So we have to do a budget that does that. I'm not afraid of the Democrats going too far. I don't think they can go too far from my point of view. I think to the extent there's going to be a moderating influence, it's going to be that a Democratic Senate is a different creature. And they went through this once before, right? We've had a Democratic Senate before, and it was a short-lived situation. Because to keep a Democratic Senate majority, you literally need to have a statewide agenda. You have to win a seat in Suffolk, and you have to win a seat in the Bronx. That is a different political calculation than you have, frankly, just on the Assembly side, where you have a majority from New York City. And the Senate Democrats made the mistake last time of having an agenda that didn't appeal statewide, and the majority that they had gained in the marginal seats, which is by definition where the majority will come from, right? It's not going to come from just New York City. You need to win Nassau. You need to win Suffolk. You need to win Westchester and Rockland. They forgot that lesson last time, and they lost the majority as quickly as they got it.
Governor,
so I think, I don't believe they've forgotten. I believe they've learned that lesson. I believe that will be the moderating influence, if any. But from my point of view, I support these measures.
But Governor, in Maine, do you believe that taxes should be increased on the super wealthy, as Assembly Democrats have called for in the past? And as a follow-up, what do you think of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's 70% marginal tax rate?
You have the Senate Democrats who got elected signed pledges which say they're not for increasing taxes. Why did they do that? Because they were under assault by the Republicans in the campaign, accusing them of your question, well, they're going to go too far, they're going to raise taxes, they're going to be allied with New York City. I mean, I spent a lot of time and a lot of resources winning that Democratic majority. I was out there in those campaigns. And what they had to run against, what they had to disprove is we're not going to be the tax-raising, tax and spend Democrats. So they literally signed pledges, Nick. So if you just go back and read the pledge that they signed, you'll see that they said, we're not going to raise taxes. We do support the property tax cap. And again, they're smart. They want to keep the majority. They didn't want to do this for a 2-year stint and then go back to the way it was. And as I mentioned before, they know it because they've seen this movie. You've seen the movie. We've all seen the movie. And they want a different outcome at the end of the movie. So read the pledges that they signed and you will see what they believe.
Governor, now everybody, yourself included, has said that you support recreational adult use of marijuana and want to see a law there. I'm wondering 2 things. One, who should be selling that recreational marijuana, like what kind of stores, etc. And 2, in order to enact that legislation, should there be some expunging of the records or offenses for previous offenses?
Look, you said that a larger number of people have said they support recreational.
Well, you have the Assembly
Yes.
and the Senate.
Yes, that's true. The how is something that we're talking about right now. I think I think you have to look at New Jersey and you have to look at Massachusetts. They are naturally competitors in the marketplace. You have a different tax rate than New Jersey. You have a different tax rate than Massachusetts. Those borders are not that far. People could literally shop back and forth. I think it's very important that the wealth that is generated here, the economic opportunity, which should be significant, goes to assist those people who paid the price in the first place. So how do you steer the economic empowerment towards the communities that actually paid the price? And that's something we're working on. Also, on the revenue generation, there have been other states that have done this, Jimmy, where if you charge too much, you will drive the business back to the illegal sales, because it's just less expensive to buy it illegally than it is to buy it legally. And since it's legal anyway, you don't really have a criminal violation for the illegal purchase. There could be certain franchises set up. I have recommended that the franchise in Albany be the LCA, and I think it would be a great way to generate revenue. And then you wouldn't have to do that show once a year. You just have the profits.
Governor,
from
any
the
concern
marijuana
about
sale.
young people starting to smoke marijuana that don't smoke marijuana? Now, a lot of people are saying this is going to be a huge public health issue.
You know, we've had that conversation. You have a lot of anecdotal feelings. You have a lot of anecdotal opinions on this issue. And I went through that myself. What we did is we went to the experts. We went to the Department of Health. We went to the state police. We put together a whole group. They did a study. They said that the benefits outweigh the risks and the burdens.
All right, one more.
And that's
Well, you're
why we
comfortable, for
decided to
example,
go
you're
forward.
a parent. You have 3 daughters. You're comfortable with them taking up smoking marijuana?
Well, what I counsel my daughters in terms of lifestyle choices, be it alcohol, be it drugs, be it other activities, that's between me and my daughters. But you know, they're at a point where you can walk into a bar and you can get drunk, you know, and go out and make a silly mistake. So I don't look at government as the way to instruct me on how to raise my kids.
Governor, there's many different versions of the Child Victims Act out there. You said you want to pass in the first 100 days. What needs to be in a final Child Victim Act from your perspective?
I think the Assembly bill is very close. There are a variety of variations and differences. Certain advocacy groups push one way or the other. But on these things, I think it's more important to get it done. Let's focus on the commonality and how to get it done rather than focus on the differences. I don't think I've ever passed a bill where all three versions were literally exactly the same. There's always compromise, there's always some differentiation. So more than anything, I want to get it done. Look, for the Child Victims Act, this has been the deprivation of justice for people who have suffered for decades, some people their entire life. It's not just, I think what people miss here, it's not just about economics. It's about the acknowledgement. It's about the admission that a wrong was done. We passed marriage equality, and even on that, people miss the point. Well, marriage equality would allow people to get married in the state of New York. Yes, it was that, but they could get married in a different state. What marriage equality was about was the acknowledgement of equality, that your love was equal to anyone else's love, that you were not being treated differently than a heterosexual couple. That was the energy and the passion that was behind that. The Child Victims Act, the energy and the passion is, I was abused. I was abused by an authority figure. And I've lived with it my entire life. And quote unquote, justice hasn't been done. And part of justice is the acknowledgement. And that's the real energy, which I agree with, behind the Child Victims Act.
Governor, does it need to have a one-year look-back window?
You need a look-back window, yes. And again, I'm basically in line with where the Assembly bill is. I don't know exactly where the Senate is, but you need, it is exactly the same? Well, then it's going to be easy.
Andrea Stewart-Cousins mentioned today more thorough vetting of state contracts. Would you be open to procurement reform?
Oh, I'm open to procurement reform, certainly. Look, you will always have people who are venial and greedy and dumb, frankly, right? And you can pass any number of laws as we have, and we still have a lot of people in prison. So it's not that passing a law will stop dumb people from doing dumb things or greedy people from doing greedy things. But you put every safeguard in place that you can. And I did this as Attorney General, and I want to do it again. We do thousands of state contracts between grants, between economic development grants, between what's called SAM, municipal grants, member item grants. So yes, I want a thorough contract procurement review that actually asks questions before the fact. When I was Attorney General, one of the things I disagreed with, the Comptroller and the Attorney General signed off on a contract before it was executed. All I had was the face of the contract. All the Comptroller had was the face of the contract. You know, all it said was, Zach gets paid $1,000 for 100 widgets. I said, I'm not signing off on this contract. I don't know who Zach is. I don't know if Zach knows how to make a widget. I don't know if Zach is married. You may know how to make a widget. If anybody knows how to make a widget, it's you, because you do it. I see it several times a week. But I said, I want more information if you want me to sign off. I would only sign off as Attorney General. My sign off was, I approve it as to form, as to form. It was a very bizarre expression. It was my way of saying, I'm not looking at the content here. All I'm saying is Zach's name is in the right box and the price is in the right box. I want to start a system that says, here is more information on that contract. and I want to send you a piece of paper and send the grantor a piece of paper that says, here's my name, full name. I have no relationship with anyone who gave the contract. I've been in the widget business for 57 years, etc. So we actually have more information sooner in the
What do you think of Stuart Cousins' ascension to majority leader? How come you didn't go?
Well, I'm going now. We have a reception at the mansion, and she's going to be there, and we're going to give her the big ceremonial gavel, which is good for gaveling. It's also good for self-defense. It weighs about 6 pounds.
But all the cameras are there
Do
too.
you know any more
But
about
I'm very excited about it. Look, from an historic point of view, it's great. You have the whole nation in this angry, hateful, bigoted time where we're arguing about putting up walls, and here you have the first woman, the first African American. What a beautiful juxtaposition, New York versus the nation. Also, she is very, very good. You know, the real threat here is what? Is we make the same mistakes we made before in, what was that, 2009? Because Senate leader is a complicated position. That is a diverse group, you know, especially with this heated politics of today. To win a seat in Suffolk and win a seat in the Bronx and win a seat in Buffalo is no easy equation. And I think she has the sophistication, and I think she has the touch to do that job, which is a very, very difficult leadership position. It's not as easy as saying, well, you know, I can get the majority by just getting a majority out of New York City. Those 2 years go by like that, you know? And we learned it the hard way when we lost those marginal seats. She needs a very skilled hand on the rudder to be able to navigate these different politics and make sure that the Suffolk member goes home a winner and the Bronx member goes home a winner. But you didn't do anything in either case which is going to alienate that constituency. That is an art form. And I think she can do that. Being from Westchester County, she has more of a sense of the subtlety of the argument. She gets New York City, but she gets Westchester, and I think that education and that sense gives her a seasoned hand. And yes, you have to win the very progressives, but yes, you also have to go back and win in marginal areas. And when you say marginal, you're saying by definition more moderated areas.
So Speaker Hasty's job is easy? Police?
No, he's got a totally different challenge. He has a much larger membership. He has people who are highly opinionated. So I wouldn't say one is easier or harder. I think they are different types of politics, right? I have one constituency, and I have one equation that I have to solve. Speaker Hasty has a different equation, and Andrea Stewart Cousins has a third equation. But remember that, I'm very big on learn from the mistakes. 2009 was not that long ago, and we were exactly where we are today, and we accomplished nothing. Nothing. Democratic governor, Democratic Senate, Democratic Assembly. You know what we accomplished? Nada, niente, nulla, goose egg, big zero. And then we lost the majority. We got nothing done and lost the majority, which was really insult to injury.
President's talents, do you regret not allowing her into 3 Men in the Room discussions with?
She was not a majority leader. It wasn't about talents. There are a lot of talented people in the legislature. The way the leaders' meeting works is it's not who is smartest or most talented. It's who's a leader. That's why they call it a leaders' meeting.
How did Jeff Klein get in on that?
He was a co-leader with Skelos originally.
Governor,
Any
did you
trips to
fire
New-
George Beach, and did it have anything to do with the scary crash?
Did I fire George Beach? No. Did it have anything to do with the Schoharie crash? No.
Do you know why
Double
the
no.
superintendent stepped down or anything? Or
This is the end of the term, and it's normal at the end of the term to have transition. I also think it's good. I think we have a lot of new talent that's coming in. I think fresh legs, to use an expression, is important. I think a different perspective is important. I think this term promises to be the most successful term I have had as governor. I believe legislatively we are going to make history in this state. Look, with a Republican Senate, we made this the most progressive state in the United States of America. Inarguably. With a Republican Senate, marriage equality, $15 minimum wage, paid family leave, free college tuition, pro-labor on Janus. With a Republican Senate, imagine what we can do with the Democratic Senate. So I think legislatively, we are going to make history. And I believe, let me finish my point, Mr. Levitt, for a change. He interrupts all the time. I think legislatively, we're going to make history. And I believe we have a chance to really have a legislative session that goes into the history books. We also have operationally, executionally, tremendous momentum and assets. We're building new roads, new bridges, new airports, new Moynihan train station, new airports upstate New York, new second track, third track on Long Island. I mean, we have a lot of projects and growth that just are now coming to bear fruition. One of the reasons why government, I think, tends not to invest in infrastructure is twofold. First, nobody can spell infrastructure, and it's such an ugly word that nobody really wants to do it. Second, it takes a long time to get it going, and nobody wants to invest that time and that money. We did, and that is now all coming online. We have the most aggressive building program in the United States of America. It's not even close. So I think the best is yet to come, and having that new energy and having that new perspective, I think is going to be very helpful, because people get tired. I mean, look at Nick Reisman. He can't even stand up this long for a press conference anymore, and he's a young guy.
Speaking of
Look
tired,
at Lovett.
any
He's got to
trips?
be against the wall to stand up. So I think the new energy is going to be helpful.
Any
Jimmy,
trips
though,
to
is still
Iowa or New
strong.
Hampshire? Any of that energy you're going to bring to Iowa and New Hampshire in the coming months?
Is there an implication in that question?
There's lots of different
No.
places one could vacation.
No,
or
no, no.
trips at
No,
all.
thank you. Thanks.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's fine.
I'm a young guy.
No, she was